Hey everybody, this is Taylor. Before we get going, I wanted to let you know that you're about to hear Daryl talking to George. This was recorded a couple weeks ago when Daryl was still in Florida before he returned to Richmond for his surgery. So it is a pre-recorded show. It is not Daryl back in studio, but the good news is that we are expecting to have Daryl back in studio next Tuesday. He should be back unless things change, schedule permitting. If it does, we'll let you know, but it should be Daryl back in studio with me this coming Tuesday. But for now, here is Daryl talking to George Quaraishi about why he left Howler to join The Athletic, what's different about his new role, the life of a story from beginning to end, how it comes to be and how it ends up getting published, why George likes to give young writers a chance, and then also Daryl and George debating why or why not sports matter. Lots of stuff in there, so I will stop talking and instead turn it over to Daryl and George, but first a little music.
Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by The Athletic Soccer's managing editor, George Quaraishi. Hello.
I'm back.
You're back. Have I got your job title right this time?
Was it that I couldn't get rid of you or you couldn't get rid of me?
It's
or
a bit of both.
A little both. Okay.
Things can be two things.
Yeah.
So when we did the USA Panama review, reviews were good. Reviews of the show were good. We heard from people on Twitter that they enjoyed your appearance. Taylor Rockwell himself texted me and said, hey, I enjoyed your chat with George. Travis Clark of Top Drawer Soccer said, hey, that was a good episode.
So all writers who are hoping to get more work. I see how
that's
how
what it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today, George. I put the hashtag Quaraishi questions out there. So we've got some questions from listeners, and I assume from readers to ask you. Some are a little personal, so I'm looking forward to those. But I also want to talk to you about work.
Do I need to put the bathrobe back on? Is this where we're going?
No, it's far too early. Okay. It's far too early. George is freshly showered and looking good, smelling good.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Sounding good.
Yeah.
Today I want to talk to you about work.
Feeling good.
Yeah? Feeling good. All right. Yeah, you got a big grin.
Oh, yeah.
First thing, let's talk about the move from Howler Magazine to The Athletic. So for people who aren't aware, you basically kickstarted Howler Magazine in the year
2012
and ran it successfully in that it did not go out of business.
In that it was still publishing a magazine?
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
For 6 years.
Yeah.
And then, I know I got a phone call in just before the World Cup 2018. You made the move from owning and operating Howler to being salaried by The Athletic.
The Athletic.
I don't know if you did a Why I Joined The Athletic story. I
made Paul do that one.
So I guess this is your Why I Joined The Athletic story. Why give up, say, the independence of the baby? Yeah, it's your baby, right, Howler?
Yeah.
You started it
for
The Athletic. And I will say, I think it's been a good move because you're sitting here grinning, but I'd like to hear the how and why it all happened.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I love Howler, of course.
Yeah.
And, some of the best relationships I have were from people I met doing Howler. You're included.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm so, it was really important to me that when I moved on, it continued to exist. So that's why I tried to find some people who I think will take really good care of it. And so far they've put out 2 issues. I've seen one of them. The other one is apparently in the mail. So it's really exciting to see that sort of take on a life of its own.
Yeah.
But I felt it was 6 years of really hard work and uncertainty and just having a lot. I tell people that I feel like I went from having 5 or 6 jobs to having 1 job. It's a really nice transition. And I'm 36 now. I started Howler with a few other people when I was 30, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a different stage of my life. We're about to have a baby. That felt like something we needed to put off for a while. Just things like that, just feeling a little bit more secure financially. And so, when this opportunity came, it wasn't just that. It was also that it felt like, when you do something for a while, I don't know, you start to think, where is this taking me? What is the next level up, or where do I go from here? And when I got the phone call, I got an email actually from one of the co-founders of The Athletic, and
that's gonna be my question. So they approached you.
They
right?
did.
You didn't reach out and say, "Hey, please hire me."
No,
they approached you. You were headhunted.
I guess so. They were aware of Howler and I guess respected it, and that was a great feeling. And so it felt to me, if I talk about this in the grand scope of my life, which of course I don't know how this ends yet, but
Yeah.
it feels like this was the thing that got me to this next thing in a
Yes.
way. And so it was in a sense a vehicle like that. And so in that sense, it's easier for me to let go of it because I feel like I'm proud of it. And but it's not, my identity is not totally bound up in this thing in the way that I guess,
because that can be weird as well, right? I know some people who have their own companies and they're so wrapped up in it that it's hard to know where their personal life is and where their work entity is.
Yeah. And
I might be that person as well.
Well, I mean, as we were talking about when we did the previous episode, I think I said something like sports don't matter.
Yes. We're going to get into that.
Okay. So, but I mean, I think that sort of, that standing, I guess, or that stance that I have, makes it easier for me to see this as a job and something that I really love doing.
Yeah.
But I also love, I love cooking. I love gardening. I love my dogs. I love my wife. I love my friends. I have a lot of interests that have nothing to do with soccer.
Right. And is it fair to say that you work fewer hours now for The Athletic than you worked when you were running Howler?
I don't know if that's fair to say. I think I'm more efficient with my time now.
Okay.
I think task switching is a real thing and has costs. And so when I went from doing editorial work to helping with design, making decisions about design stuff, to paying bills, to doing marketing and emails and social media and podcasting,
yes,
and customer service, all these things that I had to do as part of Howler. You're
like one of those one-man bands. Those guys that walk down the street.
I had a lot of help. I had a lot of help, and I had a lot of volunteers who helped.
Yeah.
And some people who I paid very poorly, but as well as we could. And so I'm not trying to say that I did it on my own, but I was ultimately responsible for everything.
Yeah, it all flowed up to you.
And now, if we have a freelancer whose check hasn't arrived, that's not on me to figure out. I help to figure that out.
Yeah, but you have a department.
I have somebody I can email, and it's a great feeling. And it's also not, it's not like, it's not a pass-through LLC anymore. And so, I'm not constantly thinking about, anyway, I have a budget. I spend what I can.
Yeah.
I think we do pretty good work, and I don't have to really worry about the fundamentals there, as long as I feel like I'm, pulling my weight in terms of putting out good content. And that's the goal. And so that was always my favorite thing about Howler, telling those stories. And now I feel like I get to do that. And
you've got a bigger budget, right? You've got money to pay people to tell stories.
Yeah, and the way that I watch soccer has changed, actually, which is weird to me. I just have to be more aware of what's happening day to day. I don't really care about transfers. I don't really care about, a lot of the things that I think drive modern soccer.
Oh, so you've got to align your interests with sort of the newsy interests are.
Yeah. But because I'm now editing someone like Paul and other writers who are...
Tenorio, for those who...
Paul Tenorio.
A.K.A. Batman on the Total Sock Show.
Perfect. People like that, I'm forced to be a little more aware. And I found that I was enjoying watching soccer a little more because there was like this, I don't know, it was just a little rejuvenating. Whenever you change something, I think.
All right.
Yeah. So
here's what I'd like to do as well. This is for readers of The Athletic, for listeners of the Total Soccer Show, for writers out there, soccer writers, and for aspiring writers. I would love to go through with you.
Editors, don't forget aspiring editors.
And aspiring
That's something nobody talks
editors.
about, and you don't know if you want to be an editor until you meet, I think, a good editor. That's how it worked for me anyway.
That's interesting. Who was your good editor?
I had two, but I had a mentor named Bob Rowe, who was at Sports Illustrated. I worked for him at a magazine called Condé Nast Portfolio, and then I went to work for a guy named David Hershey at HarperCollins.
Yeah, David Hershey's a soccer guy, right?
Yep, but he was an editor at HarperCollins. He did nonfiction books for them, and so I worked for him. And
I see.
No, we didn't do any soccer books together, but yeah, it was amazing. It was both very different in the way they work, but I learned so much.
All right, so we'll include aspiring editors.
Yeah.
I want to go through with you the life of a story from sort of pitch phase to writing it, because you don't write a lot right now, right? It's mostly editing. But so I'm interested in what that's like from your perspective when you're waiting for the story to come in, then the actual editing process, publishing, promotion, all that kind of stuff. So basically I want to get into the weeds on how a story gets published on The Athletic Soccer.
Yeah,
so let's start with the pitch.
What kind of story do you want to talk about? Because there are sort of more immediate stories where it's like, oh, this happened this weekend, we need to address it.
Yeah.
Then there are like feature stories. And then there are like essays and criticism, that kind of thing. So,
well, do you have a story in mind that you would like to talk about? If you've got a story that you know the back and forth on, then...
my favorite one that we've done so far is probably the Mike Piazza story we ran, which...
Is this the guy that bought a team and ruined it?
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Well, I'm ashamed to say I haven't read it. There was loads of buzz about it, and I kept thinking, I'll bookmark that and read it, and I didn't.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay.
Can you give me a brief idea of just what the team was?
Yeah, it was
who is Mike Piazza?
Mike Piazza is a very famous baseball. He's a catcher, he was a catcher. He's in the Hall of Fame now. He played for the Mets mostly, and he is now, I want to say, 50 years old or so, and had something of a, the way his wife described it in the story was a midlife crisis, and he purchased he got into soccer after and his sort of Italian roots, I guess, after retiring.
Instead of a convertible car.
Yeah, and he looked around for teams to buy: England, Mexico. Ended up buying AC Reggiana in Italy's, I want to say, third division at the time, and hired
Serie A.
Yeah. Oh man, you are so sophisticated.
I just said it confidently.
For a boy from Wolverhampton.
I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true.
He hired Ted Filipakos to become the president of the team. Sonia Konjatenko, who was a Howler social media guru for a while, also went to work there. And I actually heard about this from them. I knew the story, but when we really got the details, it was from talking to those two about it, and it sounded amazing. So I sent the writer who I sort of consider my best feature writer.
Can you say the second person's name again?
Sonia Konjatenko.
Okay, sorry, no, I thought it was someone I knew. My mistake.
Okay, you've definitely seen her photos on Instagram.
Okay.
Anyway, and so I sent Robert Powell, who wrote This Love Is Not for Cowards, and has written a bunch of amazing stories for me for Howler, and this was the first one we did together at The Athletic.
So let's start with how did this start then? How did the story sort of get pitched?
Brooks Peck.
Okay, who's one of your editorial team?
Who's
right?
one
we should
of our
establish
editors.
this for people who don't. I kind of assume that everybody knows because we're in this weird media circle, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Especially after seeing you at MLS Cup and the convention and seeing you here. I forget that we have a sort of bubble, right?
Yeah.
So at The Athletic Soccer, there's George Quaraishi is the managing editor,
and
the other editors are
Brooks Peck, and Alex Abnos.
Okay,
and Brooks and I worked together. He had an amazing, hilarious satirical blog called Dirty Tackle.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
everybody's heard of it.
Yeah, and he's really sharp, really smart, and he just sent me a link to this crazy press conference that Mike Piazza gave, where he just sort of went off.
So this is Brooks scanning his crazy news feeds.
Yeah. Brooks is, I think, he's looking for outlets for his his devious mind now that he's no longer doing like daily monologues in the mind of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Yeah. So sent this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I was like, we should talk to Robert and see if he wants to do it, because Robert is an interesting guy. He's a really great writer, but he's kind of temperamental in a way. He has to believe in a story, I think, in order to do it. He won't take a story that he doesn't think has potential, and he wants to do big stories. And
this is interesting because this is the reverse. Like normally, writers are pitching stories to you, right? This is you decide on a story, finding a writer, and trying to convince the writer to write the story.
Yeah, that happens.
It's a reverse pitch.
That happens sometimes.
It's a chip.
Yeah. And if a writer brings a story to me, then ethically, I would not take that story to another writer.
Yeah, no, of course.
However, if I think of a story, if we as a team think of a story, then we try to think of who's the best writer for the story. And in my opinion, it was Robert, and it turned out to be true. Nobody would have done this story if. Essentially, the Piazzas also live in Miami, and Robert lives in Miami Beach, and so he went over and somehow got a great 5-hour interview with them, where they went through several bottles of wine and really opened up to him, and that really made the story. Just some incredible characters. So
can we talk about like how that happens? So do you get involved in that, or does Robert just reach out and set up the meeting, or do you have to make an introduction to vouch for him?
I tried to help a little bit. I think we got a connection through the Athletics baseball editors to Piazza's management team, and I had a back and forth with someone there who I'm blanking on his name, but Robert came back to me, and this is one of the things I love about Robert. He found a way to talk to this guy, and he's done this for me multiple times.
Because this is part of being a writer, right? I think a lot of people don't realize this. It's not just sitting back writing about Manchester City's tactics. A lot of being a decent writer is finding a way to get a subject to talk to you.
Depends on the story. Yeah, it depends on the story that you're trying to do. But he's a feature writer, so he wants to write stories that have scenes and characters and dialogue and tell a story, right? Not describe why something happened, but how it happened, I guess. And so I just trust him. He did the Marcelo Claret story for us. The CEO of Sprint, who was David Beckham's partner in the Miami soccer team.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And got some amazing quotes there. that was a controversial story, but you know, he acted ethically and got an incredible story. And I don't know another writer who would have done.
I remember the story. You had a bit of a back and forth afterwards about it. Right?
That was great. Yeah, it was such a good story. So yeah.
So he goes and interviews.
First I got in touch with him. I said, we can pay you X amount.
Yeah.
You know, he's an expensive writer because he's really good and he takes his time. And that story, we probably started talking about this last summer, and then it came out in December. So, you know, this is a long story. It takes a long timeline.
Can we talk about the negotiation of the rate? Like, I'm not with the dollar figure.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's not cool. But, like, I mean, do you like straight away offer the maximum amount that you think you can offer, or do you start low and prepare to negotiate higher? Like, what's the deal?
No, I'm pretty. Look, he and I have a relationship going back 7 years now.
Okay.
And, you know, we hang out. We drove to LA together and back for a soccer game, you know, which from Tampa. So that's a 3 days there, 3 days back.
It's a lot of country.
Robert and I'm not going to mess around with Robert. I told him, here, this is what I think I can pay you. And this is the travel budget.
All right.
And he said, I can make that work.
I like that. Actually, so, you know, I've written a few things for you, and I remember you told me the rate. I was like, yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah.
I kind of assumed you weren't holding out an extra few figures on me. I mean, that would be a good time to tell me if you were.
I mean, I try not to be a pushover, and I also try to be fair.
Yeah, okay.
So
it's a good way to be.
Yeah. So anyway.
Travel budget. I want to talk about travel budget.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, what's within range?
I mean, we bought the airplane ticket.
Yep.
We talked together about when the best time to go was. We said, "Oh, should we go next week?" No, it's crazy expensive. Let's pick a week where we think they'll be there, and you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So we found I think we've paid like $900 for the flight. I mean, you know, and then he stayed at a very cheap Airbnb in Reggio Emilia, and he doesn't eat extravagantly. And I know this about Robert. I mean, I'm just not worried about when he goes. You know, it's going to be reasonable. So,
but like all meals covered.
Oh yeah.
And then, okay, this is always my question: meals plus, if he has a bottle of wine as well, also covered, or is that because I've written for magazines where they're like, all right, we'll cover your food, but if you have any drinks, we're not. That's on you.
I don't think I've ever looked that closely at a writer's bill when they've gone to travel for.
So you don't go through it line by line, and you're like, Chianti, that's not food.
No, I mean, and look, for what we're if we were to say to Robert, okay, he went to Reggio Emilia for 10 days for us, which is a nice long chunk of time to report this story. And if you took the fee we paid him, you know, and broke it down by the hour, 24 hours a day, he's traveling for us. You know, he's not doing it because he, you know, I mean, I'm sure he enjoyed going to Italy. Like that's a fun thing to do, but he was doing it for us. Like he's working. So I'm sure that the hourly rate is not really in his favor when you do that. So I'm not nickel and dime, you know, and it's not my money, but same thing with Howler. Like I tried to be as fair as I could. I mean, Howler, we were much more restricted, right?
Of course, because the budget is smaller. Yeah. And just to be clear, I'm not trying to judge you here. I'm trying to give people who maybe aren't writers or who haven't written for big outlets like The Athletic an idea of how all this stuff works.
I have to say, there's a divide though. They're like sort of the more legacy. The Athletic is sort of straddled these in some ways, but there's
it's unique, right? It's pretty unique.
Yeah, they're the old legacy magazines where you know you can pretty much assume you're going to get $1 a word at least, and you know a pretty decent per diem for travel and whatnot. And then there are, you know, more modern websites. We just had layoffs from BuzzFeed and whatever. And, you know, I just don't think it's different. I think it's a shame because I think that a lot of great reporting will not happen because we're not giving writers the freedom to go and pursue stories, but that's where we live. So, so look, we don't. That's the only story we've done like that. So to give you a sense, I would love to do more, and we're looking for more stories to do with Robert.
So what happens while he's in Reggio Emilia?
I totally forget about him unless he needs me.
Is that right? So you're not like because he's obviously an experienced writer. He doesn't maybe need your advice necessarily on what to do while he's there. So do you just basically sit here and wait for the copy?
Yeah, so this is something that's a little different for a writer like him and a writer who's a younger writer who you know, one thing I did with Howler that I really made a point of doing that I wanted to do was to give less experienced writers a chance to write a long reported piece.
Yeah.
That was important to me because it felt to me like the trade-off, if I couldn't pay very well, the trade-off would at least be, well, I can share what I know and help you get a clip that you're really proud of and that you earned.
Yep.
And that is like the kind of old school feature story that if a magazine is doing it today still, they're not giving it to someone and taking such a huge chance as we would with you, you being this young, inexperienced writer. And so,
so you're like Johnny Apple soccer journalism.
I mean, it's something that I keep in mind for sure. I want to help sort of people. We've had a really great line of young writers come through Howler, and I hope that they feel that we've helped them as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're doing that with The Athletic as well. I actually want to ask you about that later, though, because I think we're halfway through.
Well, so where I was going with this,
Robert story.
So I think with a younger writer, a less experienced writer, what I always say to writers is, here are your edits, or while you're writing this, let's say before they turn in a draft, lean on me as much as you want, or just totally ignore me. Whatever is best for you. And writers are different. So if somebody wants to, we have one writer who will tell us every single bit of news that he hears from every source he talks to. And that's one way of doing it. And another writer who, and both of these writers get really good scoops. Another writer who will tell us about 10 minutes before he's got a story ready to go. and that's just totally different styles.
Yeah.
And that's fine. My job is to work with like a bunch of different writers, and they're all going to be different, and to figure out the best way to get the best stuff from each of them, which is always different.
This is the managing part of managing editor.
I guess so. Yeah. There are other parts of the managing, like the budgets and whatnot. But
Much more to come from Daryl's conversation with George, but first I wanted to let you know about today's sponsor, Hims, a new wellness brand for men. They are a one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, and sexual wellness for men. I've been watching the Champions League these past couple days. I did notice, with the HD, you can see a little bit of the thinning hair. Deni Alves looking in your direction. If you've started to go, maybe it's starting to go in the back a little bit before you end up looking like a full Zidane. You could go to Hims, and they will help you prevent that from happening. Hims connects you with real doctors and medical grade solutions to treat hair loss. They offer well-known generic equivalents to name brand prescriptions to help you keep your hair. So you can use the Hims products. You keep your hair. You look good on global television when in HD and probably in standard definition too. That's how good they are. Best of all, our listeners can get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today, right now, while supplies last. See their website for full details. This would cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy, but instead you can go to forhims.com/total soccer. That's FORHIMS.com/total soccer. All one word, all together. Forhims.com/total soccer to get that trial month for just $5. Thank you to Hims for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show. Now back to Daryl and George.
All right, so the copy comes in.
Copy comes in.
How long after the 10-day trip does the copy come in from Robert?
I think he took about 3 weeks.
Okay. And that was normal? Like that was fine by you?
I mean, there's no normal with something like this.
Okay.
It just depends.
And there's no ticking clock on this, right? This isn't...
No.
Because no one else is reporting it, you assume, so...
We knew that one other place had a similar story.
Oh, this is interesting.
Because Ted told us he had spoken to another writer. I want to say it was These Football Times or something like that.
Yeah.
But we felt pretty confident that, A, they hadn't sent a writer to Italy.
Yeah.
B, they didn't have a 5-hour drunken interview with the Piazzas. That was just bananas if you've read that story.
I know, I'm going to read it in the next 24 hours.
It was great. And let me just say, by the way, that I don't think that they came, I don't think that was a material, it didn't make a material difference to the story. I think that Alicia Piazza's wife, is just such a character and really mattered to the story because she started running the club in the middle of this whole thing.
Right.
And I think they really just came through and gave an honest account of what happened. So, anyway, I read the piece. I thought this is fantastic. It needed, I read it and I thought, okay, we probably want to work on the lead. There are some things.
Can you tell people what the lead is?
Yeah, the lead is the first paragraph or a couple of paragraphs. The thing that's going to make you want to keep reading the story. It's usually sets a scene, puts you in the story in some way. And I think what we ended up doing, we sort of struggled with, first with Robert, I'll just say, hey, this isn't doing it for me. Can you try again? As opposed to saying, hey, I think this is what it needs. If it's another writer, I might do that. But with him, I said, hey, and he was like, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, let me work on it. And
I want to stop there because I I know from experience that some writers, and it sounds like you have a good relationship with Robert, who's an experienced writer. Mm-hmm. You tell him, this isn't working for me, can you try again? He's just like, yeah, fine, that's my job, I'll try again. Do you get other writers who are kind of like, no, I think this is the right thing. I put my heart and soul into this lead. Like, do you ever, you ever have to have an arm wrestle about
my first, when I worked for Hershey at HarperCollins, I had a couple of books that I edited for him where they wanted me to, not just him, but he and the publisher wanted this book cut, the manuscript cut from like in half, basically from like 800 to 400 words or 600 to 300 words. And I had 2 books like that. And
you mean pages?
Sorry, pages.
Yes.
I've been doing this with my wife where she's pregnant and I keep saying months instead of weeks. And she's like, I am not 22 months pregnant. And if I ever am, I will murder everyone I see. So no, yeah, definitely pages. And I was just a nobody editor, and they were, the writer and the agent. This is where I ran into, it was a learning experience, and I think I did a good job, but I remember complaining or just venting to my previous boss, Bob, who I told you about, who ended up officiating my wedding. That's, he's there, he's amazing. And he said, yeah, you're learning how to break the writer. And so he called it breaking the writer, like a horse? Like a horse, yeah. And he was totally right. Once I thought about it in those terms, I thought, oh yeah, I'm just earning his trust. I'm just telling him, I'm just showing him that, like, even though it looks like a bloodbath on the page,
you know what you're doing.
That it's going to be a better, tighter, just better book. And so there's always that I mean, do you
think there's a confidence aspect to that as well? Like, if you approach it like you're just tiptoeing around it and trying to explain to them that you're going to halve the length of their manuscript, then they don't trust you as much, so maybe they're not convinced that it's a good idea.
Yeah, there's a little bit of...
If you come in hot and be like, this thing needs to be half the length, here's what we're doing, they might be more likely to be like, okay, I trust this guy.
Well, there's never like a right or wrong, but like, there's definitely like, yeah, this is better than what it was.
Yeah.
And so if you can convince someone of that, and also there's a little bit of like the fake it till you make it kind of thing where, I learned, I learned not by doing this, but by reading behind Bob. So Bob had amazing writers at Portfolio. I don't know if you know about Portfolio, but it was like the last $100 million magazine launch, they called it, right? And then it totally imploded.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't it about like high-end lifestyle type stuff?
It was business. It was a high-end business magazine, and so they had some really good feature writing. And so my education was reading Bob's edits. He would send them to me.
So you saw the before and the after.
Exactly. And I saw how he spoke to the writers in the text, and the kinds of, the way that he described what he wanted to do, because that's a language in and of itself. It's describing, there's like there's a technical lexicon to how you talk about these things. Like it's a professional jargon, right? Mm-hmm. So I learned from him how I'm sure there are many different dialects to this, but I learned from him and he learned from someone else.
Yeah. So you talk like him.
I think so.
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
I would be proud if I did, because he's excellent. So anyway, what was I saying?
Back to the Robert story, maybe?
Yeah. So I would just tell him, hey, I think it needs this or that, and he would.
The new lead, you said this lead's not doing it for me.
Yeah, and he tried with that, and it didn't really work. And so what we ended up doing was actually, I think, just swapping the first and second paragraphs, just like flipping them, and it just suddenly, like a light bulb, and it just worked.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened.
So I can see how happy you look describing that.
Yeah, it was great.
This is why you love being an editor, right? Because it's like fixing things, I guess, or
what I like about being an editor is I like the social nature of it.
Oh yeah.
If you're a writer, I think you have to be alone a lot, and I enjoy talking to people, and
because you're collaborating with the writer on every story.
Yeah, and it makes you feel, I'm constantly giving away what I think are good ideas, and so it makes me feel generous in a way, which is nice.
Yeah. And also they have to take your ideas because you're the managing editor.
Yeah, kind of. But I mean, with Howler, this was my magazine, so you either did what I said or gave me a really good reason not to, and that happens all the time as well. Like I can be convinced. I'm not a tyrant. If any writers are listening to this and disagree, please keep it private. I can be a little bit of a tyrant, I guess. But look, in the end, it's like all in service to the story. And so if it's hard to hear but makes it a better story, then I also, like, it's 75% about the story and it's 25% about, like, are you actually hearing what I'm saying and going to apply this to the next story you write for me, because that's really important to me. If I work with a writer, we've had a few writers who have really improved, and it's so cool to see that.
Yeah.
And I know it's because they're taking what Brooks and Alex and I are telling them, and they're applying it to the next one, and that is so important. So anyway, yeah.
All right, let's get to the end of this story. Okay, so you've switched the first two paragraphs, so now you love the lead.
Yeah, and there were a lot of other little things, and it's.
Can you give me one example of a little thing?
Trying to think through a few things.
If you can't remember, it's okay.
No. If I had it in front of me, it would be easier. I think that there was one section where so Mike Piazza's wife was in Playboy. She was a Playboy model, and she had I
believe they're called bunnies.
A Playboy bunny, and she had a Playboy bunny friend come to meet her. And Sonia Kondratenko, who was hired to do social media for this team, was dispatched to drive the Playboy bunny friend to the train station. And I think Sonia had a quote that said something like, "My life goal, let's just say my life goal is not to be doing errands for Playmates," which I thought was a pretty funny line. But then I had read it, Brooks had read it. We sent it to Emma Spann, who is the managing editor of the Athletics baseball stuff.
Yeah.
And she is a woman, and I think to that point was the only woman who had read the story.
I see.
And so I wanted to make sure that we are factually portraying a former Playmate who is a very key part of this story. Mm-hmm. And there is another female character saying something, I guess, disparaging about Playmates, I guess, or at least I guess the implication was I don't know. It's not people can hear the phrase and make their own decisions about it.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that we weren't having some sort of male moment where we thought something was okay and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I think it ended up being okay. The line ran as it was written, but those are little judgment calls, and there were a lot of those little things. And
But it sounds smart that you checked it with Emma Spann.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We try to be smart. We had a lawyer read it. We have an in-house attorney, and he read it and signed off. And those are things you do when you're writing about a high-profile subject or a contentious story.
You could potentially afford a high-priced lawyer
of
his own.
Sure. You have to. Yeah, these are basic magazine things. These are not ground. They're now rare because in the business that we're in, a lot of stories will come in an hour later. They're published because. It's like, what did Unai Emery do last weekend? And nobody's gonna.
Not a lot.
If he starts suing, if he sues you for saying that,
that article could be very short.
And he's also not going to sue you for saying that. So but it's a process that we apply to the biggest stories.
All right, final thing. Mm-hmm. Say the story's all edited. I assume images are handled. I think you have a Getty subscription.
You know what we do, but for this one, the New York Times had sent a writer to do a story on. I think it was Andrew Kay, to do a story on Piazza when things were going well, and he had just bought the team. And I emailed the Times photo department and said, "Hey, would you license a photo to us? Do you have any that didn't run in the original story?" And they did. We liked one of them, and so we got the story that way. So,
by license, then you basically pay.
We pay
for the license to.
I think we have that photo for a year, and I put a reminder on my calendar to change to a different photo in 9 months or something, so that we're safe. But yeah.
So then, La Piazza de Resistance is the headline.
Very good.
You got to put a headline on the story.
Yeah.
I always struggle with this. I don't think I'm good at headlines. I find headlines really hard. What is your approach? What is the Athletics approach?
Not too long.
Mm-hmm.
Descriptive, factual. I forget what was the headline on this one. It was let me try to remember.
Yeah, go for it.
But I remember we workshopped it a little bit.
Okay. And who I'm going to ask you questions while you Google.
Yeah.
Who workshops it? Is it you and Brooks and Alex?
Yeah, I think I suggested something and sent it around, and we sort of. I think Brooks was against this headline for some reason, if I recall correctly, and then I think I sort of convinced him that it was going to be okay, and it was okay.
Yeah.
But he had a good point. But sometimes it's just a gut thing.
And when you workshop something like that, or there's a big decision to be made, I'm assuming people know this, that the Athletic soccer at least is decentralized, right?
Yeah, we're all over the place.
So I know there's a Slack channel because I'm in it.
Yeah.
I know there's emails, and I know that you're also on the phone. So how do you decide? Is it a quick phone call? Is it Slack conversation?
Depends on on the severity of the decision or the level of the decision. Usually Slack, but we have a conference line that we jump on if we need to. Okay, so the headline ended up being "The Passion of Mike Piazza: How the Midlife Crisis of a Baseball Hall of Famer Led to the Demise of a 100-Year-Old Italian Soccer Club." And so I think, if I recall correctly, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think Brooks was saying, you know what? The Passion of Mike Piazza, that's a play on a couple of things, right? So
Passion of the Christ.
The Passion of the Christ, so his suffering, right? Mm-hmm. This is about Piazza's midlife crisis, but it's also about the passion that led him to want to go and buy this team. And so,
I get it. That's a good headline.
I thought so. Brooks thought we might offend some people who are, I'm an atheist, and so I think Brooks was thought we may offend some people who thought we were comparing Mike Piazza to Jesus.
Right.
So
kind of like a John Lennon burning all the Beatles records.
I'm a little less sensitive to that kind of thing, but I take it seriously. I don't want to like turn people off for a stupid reason. It's a great story, so a barrier to reading it is a bad thing.
Right. So that seems like a long headline to me.
It is a pretty long
headline. Sounds like a headline and a subhead. Like I would imagine if I saw that in print, it would have The Passion of Mike Piazza as the headline. And the second part would be like the subhead underneath in smaller font.
We call it the head and the deck.
The deck, sorry.
Or the subhead.
Right?
Yeah. Deck being DEK.
Yes.
Okay.
I've submitted enough of those.
And so, but let's walk through it, right?
Okay.
So let's say we just do The Passion of Mike Piazza. That tells you nothing about what the story is.
Yes.
In the architecture of the site, we don't actually have a place for decks on the site. So we have a place for a subhead, which is, you only see that though if you're on like a homepage and scrolling through stories, our own stories. But we assume that most people will be new to this story and seeing it on social media or something like that. So we didn't want there to be a barrier in that sense. So for that reason, The Passion of Mike Piazza doesn't work. Even though I think, as for a magazine, it would be great. Yeah. For a website, less so.
Because I'm guessing the idea is that a magazine, you've already got it open in front of you.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a barrier that you've already sort of breached.
You've already clicked when you open the page.
Yeah. And just to be clear, there's a colon, the Passion of Mike Piazza colon, how the midlife crisis. So then, like, let's say we get rid of that one and we just do how the midlife crisis of a baseball Hall of Famer. So you have to get Mike Piazza's name in there. He's very famous. So, so we could have done, I guess, how the midlife crisis of Mike Piazza led to the demise of a 100-year-old Italian soccer club. I mean, having his name in the first clause allowed us to get baseball Hall of Famer in the headline, which is again, like, if you don't know, I don't know if you knew who Mike Piazza was.
I have no idea about baseball.
But you know what baseball in the Hall of Fame is.
Yes.
So I don't know. Like, there you go. If we didn't get you with the first name.
So that headline works for me, right? Because I get the name and I get the description.
It kind of had to work for baseball and soccer fans in a weird way.
Did this get cross-published to
the
Athletic Baseball, I assume it's called?
Yeah.
I've never been there, but I'm sure it's great.
It is great. Emma's a wonderful editor. So, and then the demise of a 100-year-old. I mean, to me, what I liked about which I guess is technically the subhead, even though it's all in the headline, is the incongruity of that. How did a midlife crisis of a baseball player lead to the demise of a 100-year-old Italian soccer? It's just if you read that and then you don't want to keep reading, I have no hope for you.
Because isn't the point of a headline like that to make you want to know why?
Yes.
To make you want to be like, all right, tell me that story. How did that happen?
It's a little bit of a tease, but it's like a totally legit and like earned tease. This is not clickbait by any means.
Because you get what you're looking for.
We're telling you exactly what happened. But there's still so much more underneath that phrase that, you have to keep reading. So
here's a weird question about it. Why isn't the name of the club in there? Like, why is it just...
It's a third division Italian soccer team. And so if we had said, led to the demise of AC Reggiana.
Yeah.
100-year-old Italian soccer club just sounds more dramatic.
Because then it's like he's ruined this century of history, as opposed to some team you've never heard of.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
This was supposed to be their centennial year this season. And that's like a tragic... There's an element of tragedy in this story as well.
Yes.
It's like there's hubris, there's tragedy, there's a lot of humor. It has a lot of different elements that make it work. And so I think we were getting at that in the headline.
Okay, once it's published, right? I'm assuming this is hot content, right? You're like, okay, we've got to make sure as many people as possible know about the story that we've invested a bunch of money in. We're the only ones with the story, I assume, at this time.
Yeah.
What's the promotional effort look like? Because I know that you're involved in that, right?
I'm involved to the extent that, like, I looped in our marketing team, our growth team. You've met some of them because
via email.
Yeah, they're the ones who buy ads on your show.
Max, right?
Max.
Yeah.
Max is head of growth. Tim is the head of the product, I want to say. I don't really worry about it after that. They're really good at their job, their jobs.
So none of the social media campaign or anything is anything to do with you?
A lot of it was organic. A lot of it was us putting out tweets. It was such a juicy story that I think Deadspin picked it up, and we had a bunch of outlets pick it up, which is like how you want a story like that to go. Mm-hmm. If other outlets were to ignore it, it's sort of unignorable.
Yeah. So this is interesting. How do you feel about, let's say Deadspin, just as an example, just because that's the first name you said,
sure.
not to pick on them.
Sure.
I'm going to assume, because I used to write blog stuff, mm-hmm. right? I'm going to assume that they sort of wrote their own, I'm going to guess 600-word story that linked to the original, but essentially rewrote it in short form, and they're resharing the news.
Yeah, there's an element of, that's fine.
Yeah, so
that's good.
That's good. Okay, from your perspective, it's good because it's getting more juice.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally, for like a story that's less complex and less in depth, you might get frustrated because, you basically gave away the entire story.
Yeah. But
this one, it's impossible to do that. I mean, a lot of the pleasure of the story is in the writing. Robert's such a good writer that, you're not going to get the full effect unless you go and read it. Even if I were to give you bullet points and like a blow by blow, like a timeline of what happened.
Yeah.
A lot of the pleasure is, there's a lot of humor, and you don't get humor in a timeline,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is there anything about fine. This story specifically? Because I feel like we've done the life of the story right now. It's out in the world and people are reading it. Is there anything about this that I didn't ask about that is kind of really important? If there's not, it's okay. I want to make this as complete as possible.
I think the important thing is The Athletic doesn't share readership numbers, but it was a very successful story for us. And
okay. You like Netflix?
Yeah, kind of. And because we're ultimately the page views and whatnot don't matter to us. It's really about, gaining subscribers, keeping subscribers. And we're really good at that.
Right.
We figured that out in a way, or not we, they figured it out, and we've plugged into their model, and we're doing the same thing for soccer. At least that's the goal.
Yeah.
And I think that hopefully what it did is it bought us another stab at something like this.
So next time you want to do a big feature, they're like, last time we gave George that money.
If it had bombed, that conversation next time would be much different.
Yeah.
And it's not, and look, this one had a perfect storm of things happening that, that were, ended up being in its favor. It had crossover appeal between soccer and baseball. It had a very famous subject. It had an excellent writer who had the time and the interest to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of things went right for this to happen, but it went right.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so that's the Mike Piazza story.
Yes.
I maybe want to talk about, that's not the typical athletic story, right? This was a high-profile one.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
Definitely.
So I want to talk about maybe smaller stories and basically pitches that you get from existing writers, maybe like me. I in the Slack channel, I'll pitch you stories.
Yep.
And I think you're very good at saying no and here's why, or yes, but tweak this, or just yes. I feel like you must get loads of them a day to the point where you're responding, what's the word, like bluntly but cleanly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I want to get an idea from you of what's a good pitch, like what sort of thing makes you think, I want to do that.
Well, I mean, it gives me a reason to want to run it. It piques my interest.
Okay, right? Yeah. So it's kind of personal in a lot of ways.
Sort of. I mean, like I said last time we spoke, I'm not a fan, so I have to put myself in.
I thought you meant of me.
No.
You're not a soccer fan. You're a soccer journalist.
No, you're okay. Yeah. You're okay.
Yeah.
You can write again. No. So I sometimes have to think like, well, okay, what's gonna really grab somebody, and I have to try to imagine. I think in some cases that helps me because I think I'm able to think of some things that I don't know that aren't the typical story. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Or maybe I'm skeptical of pitches that might otherwise get passed through and get assigned because of that. I don't know. I don't really know.
How about this? Maybe to so this can be like a learning experience, maybe from aspiring writers, and maybe to save you some time on some pitches you don't want to get.
Yeah.
What are some bad pitches? I mean, I don't need to name and shame specific writers. I mean, like, what's an example of a type of pitch that maybe you get regularly because people think it's a good idea, but you're pretty immediately like, no, that's not going to work?
Yeah. They come in all shapes and sizes.
All right.
But, like so the advice I give to young writers is write about something that pretty much no one else wants to write about. So if it's just an opinion piece about Chelsea, like, yeah, anyone can write that. Go talk to someone.
Plus, if someone sent you pitch for an opinion piece about Chelsea, then they wouldn't have read the site and known that you already have a Chelsea writer.
We have a Chelsea writer. We have 2 Chelsea writers.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
I did that, by the way. When I was a kid, I was 22.
Yeah.
I moved to Ireland to go to school at UCD, and I pitched 442 Soccer Magazine, and I just said, like, hey, while I'm here, I'd love to, like, cover the Irish League for you. And the editor got back to me and said, hey, if you read the magazine, you'd see that we have a column every month about the Irish football.
But you were closer because you were wanting to write about something where you were.
Yeah.
And that's really crucial.
Yeah, I was only like 80% wrong.
Yeah.
But that was a good learning experience for me. Like, I really learned a lot from that back and forth. Yeah.
So,
I've got a lot smarter since.
Yeah. But, if you write, if you're a writer and you live in Memphis, for instance, there's a new Memphis team starting up.
Yeah.
And so go pitch me a story about that Memphis team and, like, go hang out with the president for a day or whoever it is and tell a story that nobody else can tell because they're not there. That is enticing. Or if you have a really interesting point of view on something, that's also helpful. But
I thought you got to be careful with that because someone might think that their opinion on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tactics for Man United is an interesting point of view, and they won't be aware that, like, Carl Anker's got that covered.
But that may be, and they may be really good at that, and maybe they're better than Carl, right? But the way that like someone, I guess, like me. So one thing that happened when I left Howler and moved to The Athletic was I sort of had to change the calculus of what we were able to do with young writers. And I had to send a lot of pitches that weren't quite right for us for whatever reason to Howler. Because Howler's place in the ecosystem when I was there, and still I think, is to be a place for people who have less experience, might need to learn a little bit more and do something like that. And so I just have less time now. I have more money to spend on stories, but I have less time to spend with writers fixing those stories. And so...
Yeah, because they take more work, basically. Right?
Yeah, so really, like, I think you wanted to get here eventually. Maybe this can be a good segue. But Joe Lowry, for instance, was blogging, I think, for free for a long time. And really
tweeting, right? During
tweeting.
Tweets, yeah.
I learned about him from your podcast.
Yeah, how about that?
And when I went to look, he had enough of a body of work to where I said, oh, this guy is interesting. He really pays attention. He's really carved out a lane for himself that, where other people do tactic stuff, but he just had he was doing it. He was doing it well. He was clearly committed to it. He was reliable. He's turned out to be all of those things since I started working with him. And, he wasn't just popping up out of the blue saying, hey, I'd like to do this. He was going about his business doing it. And then what I learned from that was, oh, he really wants to do this and he's really good at it. And I'm not taking a chance here. This is just somebody who really needs a shot.
Yeah. So yeah, but I think it's a big thing to not spend all your budget on established writers. Right?
Oh yeah.
So I know part of the Athletics model is to get writers that people already know, so that's I'm assuming that's part of the metric, right? To draw those people in.
I mean, it's a subscription based site, and so certainly having a social media following is helpful there because you have an audience built in. But we also have. We have writers who don't have much of an audience. I know, for instance, our LA writer about LAFC, Ryan Wallerson, he didn't have, I don't think he has a huge following, but he got in touch with me when he moved to LA. He had, I think he had interned at SI before and was like, hey, I'm in LA. I think he was working like mostly nights doing like an audio editing job. And so he had daytime free and that was great because he could go to training and he could go to, stuff he could write. So anyway, he's a good example of someone who didn't come with like a huge built-in LA, especially an LA following, but has done a good job for us.
And then we've got Snaves, Adam Whittaker, Snavely. I had him on the show, I want to say 2 months ago. Actually don't know when this episode will publish, to talk about Dortmund. And we just got chatting during the interview and he talked about how, you basically picked him up from SB Nation.
Yeah,
right?
Brooks found him.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of him, but he was doing a series on like, it was something funny. Like it was like a very Deadspin idea. It was like, what's terrible in soccer this week? Which like really, really spoke to me because so many things are terrible in soccer.
But even just like, to me, that's good writing, right? Just that headline.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
And so now, this was a great. This is a nice little example. I'm not sure of what, but we found him, or Brooks found him. I called him and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm available." And so he started writing for us. And again, like I had never covered anything day to day, like in terms of a beat. Howler was a quarterly, so if that. So, but we had to figure out a way to cover the Premier League, and Adam's funny, and so I think I had this idea to instead of a power rankings, it was a panic rankings. Yeah. And it was like a nice way to sort of play on the insecurities and the fears of every fan, which is something that I'm told fans have. And he has killed it. And we routinely, half the comments, maybe a little less than half, are like, "This is terrible. What is this?" And then the other half are like, "This is the best thing on this website. Mm-hmm. Thank you for doing this." And I agree with those people. It's hilarious. It's so funny. It's so good. And so, just watching him do that has been so rewarding, so gratifying.
Yeah. Hello there, podcast friends. Taylor jumping in one more time to let you know about today's sponsor, Grip 6 belts. Grip 6 belts are the only belts with no holes, no flap hanging out. Their patent-pending locking mechanism holds tight all day and never slips. So say the field crew at Old Trafford wants to prevent people from falling down the hill, the way Angel Di Maria did yesterday, Tuesday, for those listening later on. They could maybe attach a bunch of Grip 6 belts, have them extend around the field, and then if a player runs into them, they hold so tight, even if you're running at full speed, or maybe get nudged into them at full speed, the belts are going to hold because their patent-pending locking mechanism holds tight all day. There's no give. It keeps everything secure so you don't go flying off the field and your pants don't go flying off of your body, which is always ideal. And if you need any more convincing, they've got thousands of 5-star reviews, and their belts are guaranteed to last forever. So if something doesn't work, something breaks, which is guaranteed to not happen. But if it does, then you can send it back and they will send you that replacement. You will always have your Grip 6 belt ready to go. So if you want to see what they have on offer and get discounted rates, you can go to grip6.com/TSS. That's GRIP, the number 6.com/TSS to see what they have on offer, what they have in inventory. There's lots and lots of choices, but then you can get those discounted rates once you go to checkout. So thank you to Grip 6 for sponsoring today's episode. It is always very much appreciated. Now back one more time to George and Daryl.
Okay, I feel like we've talked a lot of athletic stuff.
Yes, yeah.
We also put out the Quaraishi questions, the request for questions. If this was a regular Total Soccer show and I'd had more time, I would have selected them and put them in a Google Doc and all that. Right now, what we're going to be doing is just me scrolling through the many Twitter questions.
Okay.
I'm going to get through as many as we can, right, to make people happy. So can you give me reasonably quick fire answers?
Yes.
All right. Do you need a drink or something before
no, I'm
we
good.
before
I've been sipping this bourbon the whole time we've been talking.
It's like a contest round, right? Yeah. At least you're not in a dressing gown this time. Yeah.
Well, wait, what does that mean? Okay, fine. You know what, Daryl?
What's that?
Is one of the questions what was I wearing under the dressing gown?
No.
Okay. Because I'll tell you if you want to know.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right.
First question is from Ira Jersey, who I met at the convention in Chicago. Ira wants to know, what was the one thing you really wish you or someone else could write a story about but just couldn't, and why? Is that one you have to mull over? Do you want to come back to that one?
Yeah, let's come back to it.
Okay. Adam Whittaker Snavely.
Oh, yeah.
Snaves himself says, has George managed to convert his entire wardrobe to pleated dad pants yet?
I'm working on it. I have one really great pair of... He's talking about this pair of corduroy pants that I wore to the MLS Cup.
Oh, yes, I know. I saw it. Yeah.
And they were extremely comfortable. So there's no apologies.
He's not asking about comfort.
Yeah.
I can confirm right now it's just regular old denim, but roll-ups. Oh, Mickey Turner. All right.
Oh, yeah.
We know Mickey Turner.
Yeah. Are these all questions from writers who write for me?
I'm scrolling down. No, the rest aren't. This is going to be big. Okay. You ready? This could be 2 hours.
Okay.
What's his opinion on the Oxford comma?
Oh yeah, definitely big fan. But we've been told not to use it for the Athletic.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people are not. I wrote for a magazine that used AP style. Mm-hmm. So I used the Oxford comma. For those, it's the serial comma, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't, basically to not use one is in the final list, list number 1, item 1, comma, item 2, and then you either go and item 3 or comma and item 3, right? That's the Oxford
So
comma.
What are you supposed to do when you, instead of using commas, you're using semicolons?
So that's just when things get more complicated.
I know, but are you supposed to not use the final semicolon? That I've never understood.
Oh, I see.
It's just a total, anyway.
Oh, Oh, I'm sorry. I've just realised I'm on the opposite side of this to you. I was using AP style.
Oh, so you hate Oxford commas?
I don't hate them. I just was taught not to use them essentially, unless they were absolutely necessary.
Daryl, apathy is like the same as just hating them. You can't be on one side or the other. You can't be in the middle. You have to be on one side or the other.
I obviously don't feel that strongly, right? If I forgot which side I'm on. There was a very good,
disappointing.
A very good Onion article about multiple Chicago Tribune journalists slain in AP style versus Chicago.
Okay, right. You're gonna have to cut most of this answer.
Okay. Jason W. Who was the best mutiny player and why?
Oh man,
it's Farouk Quaraishi, right?
No, he never played.
Oh, was he Raiders?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, Mutiny is the MLS version of the Tampa Bay team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me just say that the Tampa Bay Mutiny had the most All-Stars in 1996. They had the best regular season record. They had the Rookie of the Year, the MLS MVP of the year. I guess that's redundant. They had the leading goal scorer who until this year had the record for most goals in a single season. They had the assist leader. They had someone who played in the 1986 World Cup, which was the best World Cup. And they had a young guy from Trinidad named Evans Wise, who his nickname was Gumby because he was so bendy. So clearly there are a lot to choose from because it was probably the best team in MLS history. But I'm going to say it's hard to...
Was Valderrama at Miami Fusion? So he's not an option?
Oh my...
I don't know my early MLS history.
Daryl.
I feel like I'm hurting you.
League MVP for the Tampa Bay Mutiny, baby.
Was he?
MLS assist leader. Who do you think fed Roy Lassiter all those goals?
So the reason I was confused is that you didn't say his name when we were asked who's the best player.
Well, I'm not there. This requires a preamble.
Oh, sorry, it was the preamble.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I'll sit back and listen.
It also had the captain of the Canadian national team in Frank Yallop. Wow. Just as people can obviously tell, there's so many to choose from. I'm going to go. So Carlos Valderrama gave me a pair of his boots, so he gets a vote.
Yeah.
Steve Ralston was very cool and a young guy, and he used to listen to 311 all the time, which I thought was cool when I was 14. But so I guess one day I was sitting in the locker room, and I was working in the locker room back then, and I was flipping through a Playboy that I found, and I was 14, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
But Frank Yallop came in. All these players were walking by like, that's funny. Look at he's reading Playboy. Frank Yallop grabbed it out of my hands and was like, "You're too young for that," which I thought was kind of a jerk move.
Uh-huh.
But
the opposite, right?
Now, yeah. But now that I'm about to have a baby, I kind of respect it.
I see. Yeah.
But I'm going Frankie Haydock.
Frankie Haydock over Carlos Valderrama.
Oh yeah. He joined halfway through because he missed the first half of the season because he was on the Olympic team, 96 Olympic team.
I see. All right, Craig Gibson. We've kind of covered this, but it's a good chance to revisit. What are the differences between editing, running Quarterly Howler versus daily digital publication like The Athletic Soccer?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many, and I think we covered that pretty well. But
okay,
it's Craig.
Yeah,
tell Craig to tweet me if he has any other if the previous stuff didn't answer that question.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, we talked about it right at the start, right? Yeah. It's about 5 hours ago.
Yeah.
Ravi wants to know, what is his plan, if any, to have more diverse journalists writing for The Athletic Soccer, specifically more women and women of colour?
Yeah. There's always something we're trying to do. We try to do with Howler. I mean, the plan, we definitely go out and try to find people, but the best way is to hopefully get pitches and make sure that people know you're available for pitches. And I hope that I've done that. I think we've gotten, I want to say 2 pitches from women of color. And I think we've gotten 1 pitch. We've assigned it. I got a letter of introduction like a week ago that I haven't responded to, but I plan to. So, I don't get a ton of pitches. I get mostly pitches from white dudes. We assign a lot of those, but we have women writing for us. We have people of color writing for us. It's really important to me. Alex and I are constantly joking, not constantly, but we've joked with Brooks how, I'm a quarter Persian, a quarter Pakistani. Alex is half Persian. So we joke with Brooks that, we have relatively diverse.
Brooks is the minority.
Brooks is relatively diverse editing staff. So it's important to me. And as I said before, I'm an atheist. I lean socialist. And so those are not majority opinions. I understand how important it is to have people making decisions who don't have traditional viewpoints. So
I guess the answer is just women of color pitch The Athletic Soccer.
Yeah. Please.
Hey, so we originally recorded this interview on a Monday. We're recording this, I'm going to call it an addendum, on Friday, because George got in touch a couple of days ago and said that he wasn't fully satisfied with his answer to Ravi's question. Is that a fair way to describe it, George?
Well, yeah, just something occurred to me. I think as part of my answer, I said something like, yeah, we love to accept pitches and we just don't get that many pitches from women of color. Yeah. And so, I had two things to say. One is, at the time we were working on, and now I think we've agreed with Shireen Ahmed to cover the Canadian women's national team for us. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
So that's an addition. But also, I just don't want to give the impression that it's a totally passive that we're taking sort of a passive stance on that, where we're just waiting for pitches to come in. Obviously it's important to go out and seek those voices out. So that's part of what we're doing as well. So that's really what I wanted to say. Just didn't want to give the impression that we're just sort of sitting here waiting for women of color to flood our inboxes with. I mean, that would be great if they want to, but it's not just that.
But it's worth talking about, right? So I remember when Trevor Noah took over The Daily Show. I'm actually not sure how many years it's been now. And he was talking to the producers about the lack of black writers on the show, right? And the producers were saying, well, hey, we're open to pitches. But then he was saying, where are you reaching out to? And it turns out they'd just been reaching out to the same old places, which wasn't necessarily where you would find black writers. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So totally. I think your original answer maybe falls into that same category, right? I know you're very open and progressive, and I'm sure you'd welcome women of color pitching The Athletic. But yeah, then there's also the other side of it, is if you want to change the balance, because things are so imbalanced in general, you almost have to, or you do have to, like go out and find people to find voices that aren't otherwise being heard.
Yeah, I think we're at like half and half right now. Like we went out and got in touch with Steph Yang. We initiated with Shireen, although I think Steph connected us, so that it's sort of in between. And then Pardeep Khatri, who I think might be related to Ravi, who asked the question, pitched us, and we've been working with her. And Shanaz Mahmood, who I met in New York at an event and has written for us. So I think we're about half and half in terms of receiving pitches versus going and initiating.
And I don't know if this helps. Maybe this is something to discuss more off air. But my wife, who, you've met her, obviously. She has a very Irish name, but she's Arab American. And she is part of a thing called the Women of Color Binders. Do you know about the Binders?
No, does that have something to do with Mitt Romney?
Yes, it was. All right, so we're going back a bit here, right? But during the 2012 presidential election, Mitt Romney said he had
his binders is
full of women, right? Which I think came off a lot worse than he meant it, right? I kind of feel like he meant well and was just very clumsy in a rich old white man kind of way. But yeah, this thing started as it's mostly a Facebook thing of it was called, like, brilliantly ironically, The Binders, and and the groups are full of women, and one of them is the Women of Color Binders. So my wife Shannon had suggested that she could at least put the Athletics information in there and say, hey, if there are any soccer freelance writers looking to pitch women from the Women of Color Binders, then that's one way to reach in. I think that'd be literally great. And you and I could not join the group, but she's already in there, so she can be our emissary.
Yeah, well, I would also say it doesn't have to just be about soccer. If anyone who wants to write about anything can send an email to, I think it's writing@theathletic.com, and that's sort of where people go to say, hey, I'd like to write about such and such. I never, I have no idea what other editors are looking for at any moment. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good place to go.
There are other sports that aren't soccer, but they're not as good, are they?
No, obviously not. Cycling. I do watch cycling a lot.
Oh, you do? I forgot that about you. Yeah, that's very unsoccer.
Yeah, no, it's very. Don't try to do them at the same time. Combining them would be fun though.
Yeah, maybe cycling is good to do while you're working because it doesn't need your full attention, I imagine.
Oh yeah, it's kind of just like a background type of thing.
Yeah. All right, George, is there anything else you wanted to talk about on this topic, or should we let listeners get back to the rest of our interview?
Yeah, let them get back to it because I'm sure people are eagerly awaiting our soccer or sports don't matter conversation.
If you are waiting for that, it's right at the end. Yeah.
All right, thanks, man.
Alexander Abnos, one of your editors, Has he moved our Friday meeting to 10:30 a.m. yet? So we're recording this on a Monday.
Monday, yeah.
This will probably be evergreen for any week, I guess.
Is
this a thing you do often?
We have a 9:30 meeting on every morning, and on Friday mornings, I get breakfast with my stepmother every Friday morning, and so I usually have to. I keep meaning to change the calendar, but I keep slacking them at like 9:28, being like, "Hey guys, can we move it back?"
I see.
Yeah, I'm usually actually done with breakfast by then, but just a little cushion is good.
So the answer is he's working on it. He's working on it. Matt at Northwood Guitar. I think this is Matt Leffler. Does he miss doing a podcast of his own?
Oh yeah, I love doing podcasts.
Did the Howler podcast, right?
Yeah, I'm a huge podcast listener.
Yeah,
and yeah, I do. I miss it. I think we're gonna have an athletic soccer podcast soon.
I've heard rumors that.
I don't know when, but hopefully.
So will you be involved?
I don't know. Occasionally, I guess.
All right,
if they'll have me.
Scott Girard maybe. Does The Athletic have plans to cover the Canadian Premier League?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so.
Peter Hicken says they'll have one more year of my subscription if they do.
Oh, good.
And Scott Girard gives the Futurama meme, "Shut up and take my money."
So I guess this is a question we get a lot: is will you cover my team or my league? And
we get that on the Total Soccer Show as well. It's tough, right? Because you want to, but you can't do that for everybody.
It is tough.
There'd be a million episodes.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The Athletic, their model has been, okay, we have a writer for a team, or maybe sometimes two writers for a team. And that's relatively easy in American sports. It's traditional American sports. It gets a lot more complicated with soccer. And I think in some ways we had to break the model that they had established. And in some ways we had to adapt soccer coverage to their model. And part of that has been figuring out what is the right frequency? How do we get the right breadth? And
I've just realized the difference is that, like, if you're doing an NFL like thing for The Athletic, then it's obvious which teams to cover, right?
It's so obvious.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a constant sort of discussion about what do we cover regularly? What does regular coverage mean? And can we supply? A lot of our writers are freelancers. So, Felipe, the people in Atlanta who read Felipe stuff love Felipe, but Felipe has a full-time job. So we get as much as we can from Felipe.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. All right.
So, that's something we always are trying to figure out. But yeah, well, that is a really interesting development, that league, and we'll have coverage. It probably won't be, daily coverage of every team. In fact, I can tell you it won't be, but we're going to do our best to really, when there are stories that merit coverage, we will be there.
Speaking of North America, Soccer Never Sleeps. This is Jersey Jonathan. Why does he think there's such fragmented coverage of soccer in the United States? Most or all outlets cover the European game with American and MLS coverage as needed, but despite TV ratings and interest levels. Liga MX and South American coverage is niche. Can there be a, quote, North American, unquote, voice? So I think he's essentially asking about maybe English language coverage of Spanish-speaking leagues.
Yeah, I would love that. I think, so two answers. One is why, like, we have Cesar Hernandez, who covers Liga MX for us. And he has to pick and choose the stories he wants to do. We don't have the resources to do all the teams. I think that if the readership numbers and the subscription numbers, suggested that there was a huge audience looking for that they would put more. But I think probably my guess is that other outlets have sort of had the same approach. And I don't know that anyone has said, we're just going to invest a ton of money into this and create the audience or find the audience there, because I think that there's some question about whether there's a need there, like
for English language.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is to that. I mean, are people content to get their coverage in Spanish of the Mexican leagues? I mean,
I feel like for me, I would watch more Liga MX if either we had an exciting American playing down there.
That is a good point.
When Jonathan Gonzalez was going to be a US men's national team player, I started watching Monterrey.
Yep, I did the same thing.
Every game. And I kind of got into it, and I learned about Monterrey. I learned about the other teams. So that's one angle for me. But the other angle would be if there was somewhere where I could read the type of coverage that I like, the tacticsy type stuff about Liga MX every week, I think it would be a way in.
You say that, but I kind of would challenge you.
You think it's like a chicken and egg?
You have a certain amount of time, and your habits are pretty well ingrained.
Yeah.
My guess is that you're not going to I don't think the role of journalism is going to be to convert necessarily at large numbers of. It probably happen here and there, but I don't think it's going to convert large numbers of people to becoming fans of a league.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna service the fans who exist of a league. That's my hunch.
Fair. Yeah.
Although look. I acknowledge that it happens sometimes. And there's obviously people have become fans of the Premier League for a reason, or fans of whatever league they follow.
Kyle Martino, that's why.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough one for me because my interests are like, that would be so cool. I would love to just have a correspondent in every major town in Mexico and really cover that.
What's Cesar's role? Is it just anything Mexican national team, anything Liga MX that's of interest?
Yeah, anything that bubbles up. And so
I think that's a good way to do it because that way you can read The Athletic. I'm not saying this to promote The Athletic. It's more that that is one good way to cover it, right? Is you just know that there's going to be something there.
It works for me. And so that's sort of to this point, like,
and it's about to get more interesting with Tata and all that.
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah. So his most recent story for us was about Raul Jimenez and what he's been doing for Wolves.
I haven't read that. I've got that on my list to read.
And it's been that's a good one for us because it sort of hits Premier League. It hits the Mexican national team. He got his start in with Club America, and so it sort of it reflects back on Mexican soccer in a way, but also hits on these other things that are interesting to people.
I also think we're about to hit this new era of a bunch of young Americans have gone over to Europe and a load of young Mexicans have gone over to Europe, like Diego Lainez. I think there's this like whole next generation.
He just did a Lainez story as well.
Yeah.
Who I'm so fascinated by because I thought he was doing incredibly well against the US and then he had that little altercation with Miazga that was fascinating. And so I love that. So yeah, he did both of those stories. And to me for me as my interests go as a fan, that's a good level to be in sort of engaged with Mexican soccer. I mean, and I totally understand that there are people who love Mexican soccer and would love a higher degree of engagement.
Yeah. I'd be interested to know how many fans of Mexican soccer there are that only speak English.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. We're about to do a reader survey, and so that's one of the things we want to sort of try to get at is where is the interest? Where's the latent interest that we haven't really tapped into yet?
Yeah.
And that may be one of them. So these are just sort of observations, impressions. This is not my sort of. I haven't done a lot of research into this, but I appreciate the question.
I would also say I'm just saying this sort of out into the world that some national teams are more interesting than others. And for all
Mexico's
kinds,
is fascinating.
It's absolutely fascinating totally for all kinds of reasons.
Totally
for like the level of talent and then the sort of drama that happens and that combination and the potential and then the I can't remember the Spanish word, but trying to get to the quarterfinals. Quinta partido, maybe. I might be wrong, but you know what I'm saying. That whole narrative is absolutely brilliant.
You've dropped some Spanish. You dropped some Italian.
Probably all incorrect. Yeah, it's all about social media engagement, getting people to correct me.
Just trying to intimidate me over here.
All right. Final thing we got to talk about. We got a lot of feedback on a thing you said on the USA Panama review show.
Yeah.
Right at the end, you said sports don't matter.
Yeah.
And I kind of let it pass. Because it was late. Both our wives were asleep. I didn't want to get into a yelling match. But I want to dig into this a little more. Because you kind of mentioned it earlier on as well.
Well, I kind of feel like the onus should be on you to convince me that sports matter.
Okay. So it depends what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I think you could make an argument that professional sports don't matter. Okay. Maybe to the degree...
Wow, you've really conceded a lot of ground. Wait. Thank you. This is great.
But I know where I'm going here.
Okay.
To the degree that people get angry on Twitter about a left-back's performance, it doesn't matter as much as it appears to when people get angry.
Yes.
But sports do matter just in terms of, mostly at an amateur level, in terms of improving people's lives, in terms of just, health, that kind of stuff. Like all my friends in Richmond, Virginia, well, not all, but the majority of my friends in Richmond, Virginia, I made through playing soccer. I met Taylor Rockwell through playing soccer. Now he's my great friend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So my sports,
we met through soccer, basically, right?
Okay,
kind of media,
sports don't matter is like a really pithy 3-word provocation.
All right.
Right. And so what you're describing...
So I didn't bite last night, but I'm biting today.
So what you're describing is true. I play soccer 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
I love playing soccer. If I had a choice, if you said, George, you can only watch soccer or play soccer for the rest of your life, there's no question I would just turn off the TV and play soccer.
Same, exactly the same.
There you go. So when I say sports don't matter, what I mean is that okay. So let me just tell a quick story, and then we'll be done with this. I think
we will not. You'll be hearing.
So with Howler, we didn't have a comment section, right? It's a print magazine.
Yeah.
Our website didn't have comments. We had Twitter or whatever. Here we started getting comments, and people would get really angry at us about takes
here on the Athletic.
At the Athletic, yeah. And Brooks came from Yahoo, and he was like, "Dude, trust me, these comments are not bad."
I remember the Yahoo comments.
Yeah. And at first, I was upset, and I was like, these people really hate us, and I don't think they really understand what we're trying to do here. And then I realized I had it wrong. We existed for them to blow off steam. For people, anyone who's reading, to blow off steam about this thing that they really care about. And that's great. I'm not trying to judge what you care about. You can care about whatever you want. And that's great. That's kind of the beauty about being alive. But once I realized that my function, one of my functions is to offer up opinions and thought on these TV shows that we all watch every weekend.
You calling soccer a TV show?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. For people to
unscripted drama,
for people to get angry about, that was a societal function that I was serving. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that was my job. And in that sense, sports is completely like a total opiate for people to sort of distract themselves from things that really matter in life, like the fact that we're cooking the earth and living in a crazy time with an insane person as the president. So I apologize. I know you're going to get a lot of people who...
We're not. We normally get one person who emails and I ignore that email.
These are actual problems. Yeah. We're putting children in cages at the border. Like these are actual... That stuff matters.
Yeah.
What happens on your TV screen in England doesn't matter to me. So that's what I meant.
It's interesting, though, but why is it that soccer produces weirdly similar levels of emotion to the big political stuff?
Okay, so this is totally hypocritical, but I will say I think as sports go, soccer matters more than most. Which is why I'm engaged with it and why I find it interesting. Because I think that...
Did I accidentally win this debate?
You may have. God, you're such a ninja. Look, because society is reflected through soccer in so many fascinating ways, in a way that maybe it is through golf as well. I just don't see it. You're shaking your head and making a scrunchy face.
Yeah, I'm not really a golf.
Yeah. So, but I think soccer is like, it's a medium. It's like water. It's like air in a certain way. It's like, if you want to find something about humanity, you're going to find it in soccer in some nook or cranny.
Yeah.
And so that to me is fascinating. But like, ultimately, when you say like, Lucas Moura is a Bolsonaro fan, and I'm like, wow, that guy kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about is politics then, not soccer.
Yeah.
So in that sense, politics matters. Soccer doesn't.
I mean, yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Maybe we'll end on that. I actually think that maybe what you said earlier about not being a fan, but maybe being a journalist, I think maybe because you don't experience that same passion that a lot of fans do.
That could be.
I would bet a lot of fans are very unhappy that you say that because they feel like maybe you're saying their feelings aren't valid. No,
that's a fair thing.
Like if they watch DC United and they're just like,
okay, let me make an apology then, because that's a totally valid point.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to denigrate those feelings at all, because I appreciate them. Like without those feelings, I couldn't have a job. Mm-hmm. I couldn't talk about the things that interest me.
Yeah. Did you not have those feelings for the mutiny, or were you too busy looking at Playboy?
No, I probably
and
did.
Playboy leads to Magic City, I've heard.
I think I did. But even then, like my best memories about the mutiny are not watching the mutiny. It's like playing soccer tennis with like Valderrama and Steve Ralston before games.
I guess those would be my best memories if I got to do that.
No, but like, I know. I'm extremely lucky to have done that. But they were like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was such a fun thing to do, and I love playing soccer because soccer is one of the few places where I can be. If I'm on a soccer field, I'm not thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
I have a total just mind meld with
soccer's great that way, because if you do start thinking about something else, you're going to get beat. Right? You're going to lose your man, or you're going to get tackled.
And my wife is constantly telling me that I'm distracted and that I need to pay attention, or that I'm not. That's one place where I am just totally in tune with my body and with what's happening around me, and
it's what Bobby Warshaw calls the flow.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
I mean, someone else calls it that.
No, it's perfectly
Bobby applied it.
Absolutely true. And so, yes, so I don't mean to, like, everyone has interests that thousands, millions of other people were going to find silly. And so, and I do too. And so, yeah, I think that the word provocation is probably the right way to put that. It's
so
something
you're stirring a little bit.
Oh yeah, kind of. But I guess that's the Alexi Lawless in me. But it led to a clarifying conversation with you, which I appreciate.
Yeah. All right.
So Daryl, let me say thank you for talking to me.
Oh, you got it wrong though. It's thank you for taking the time to talk to me today, George Quaraishi.
Damn it. I'm going to go put my bathrobe on.
Do you know what you're supposed to say back?
Thank you. Well, no, what? You.
What position does DeAndre Yedlin play?
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back soon with more Total Soccer Show.
That was good.